So, guys, thinking about the issue of authenticity, I've been thinking about that. And, we live in an age now, and I suspect that every era has been this way. People always trying to be who they weren't or trying to put on airs, as they used to say back in the day. But we're probably at the height of that. We probably haven't gotten any better as human beings with that. We're probably worse than ever because actually we've got all this assistance to do it now. All the social media and AI and Photoshop. I mean, you really can project an image other than who you are. But it actually, even with all those tools, it probably even creates more work of people trying to project an image that's really not authentic. And authenticity runs in several areas. It runs in community, it runs in just one-on-one relationships, maybe, with the opposite sex. It runs with God. And, one of the ironies is the scripture says that when we do face the Lord, we will know as we are known, which is like, wow. It'll be like, this is how everybody saw you all along, right? It's kind of like, the first time that you ever heard your voice on a recording, you're like, oh my gosh, do I really sound like that? I hate that.
Lord.
You think I have an accent? So,
No idea.
so that struggle for authenticity with God and with others and community and all that. What's y'all's thoughts on that or your struggles with that? Where you guys at with some of that?
I guess where my mind goes is when I first started walking with the Lord, I looked at people that were maybe my heroes, and I thought, I got to do it like them, right? So if I just do this deep dive, I can be just as amazing. It's just like push-ups in the Marines or something, just go for it.
Yeah.
But I found that I was actually weak, and those things were a mask. And I don't think that people necessarily want to know the other side of you either. They want you to be that hero. Like, 1 Samuel 8, give us a king. Yeah. Everybody wants a king.
And that old saying, never meet your heroes, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Same type of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't telling their stories. They weren't telling their flaws. The guarded secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess about authenticity, I think you try to project what you think you should be. It doesn't work very good, does it? I mean, you just can't be that amazing.
Right.
You find out you need grace, and that's what it's there for.
But we still seem to struggle to try to do it, even when we know better.
Yeah. It's the air we breathe. It's kind of like consumerism. I mean, like you said it well, there's no shortage of that's what a lot of people want out of me is to do that. But yet the call to authenticity, and I think just for whoever might be listening, like what is authenticity? And I think a close word that's a simpler word is real, like real. And again, well, what is that? And I think, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but just a little, I think this goes into truth, like a love of truth. What is true? So I think one of the first questions a person has to answer, there's like 4 big ones from Dallas Willard, but one of the big ones is, what is real or true? What can be relied on? And I think that's how deep this subject really goes, meaning we could see that externally, but authenticity is how well do we apply it internally? Do I really care about the real? Am I real? Do I care about your real? And I think the more that we truly value truth, the more we have capacity to say, I don't want a facade that you think I want. I really, truly care about whatever's real there. And then imagine a community, and I'll hand this back to you all, a community to where everyone feels a vested interest in Lance, like, man, please don't varnish it. Don't polyurethane it or clear coat it. Just tell me how you feel, because I really care about what is true and real with you. And I think it has to get back to that, because there's such a market for fake, for phony.
Right.
We have an appetite for it. And so there's no shortage of people. So I have to grow to be the kind of person, not only to show you my real with courage, but to desire yours and protect it at the same time.
Right.
So you'll feel safe wanting to share that.
Yeah.
You feel valued in all of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the kind of community I want to be a part of and help build.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about along those lines. It was, even as we were just sitting here talking, thinking about the word authentic. So you think the word author and the word authentic. Now these have common roots. So part of being authentic is being who the author meant you to be in the first place. Well, God created every one of us, right? So when you look at, like I like, and I figure maybe some of you guys do this too. I enjoy some of the old classic car shows, seeing them restore cars. And, there's a couple of approaches to classic cars. And some of the purists are like, I want to restore this car to exact original.
Right.
Right. Original parts, and they'll struggle and they'll take years to find the parts and everything. They want it to be like it rolled off that fact, like the author. That's authenticity to them. And then there's the resto mod deal. I want it to look old, but I want it to ride cool. I want it to be cushy on the inside and everything. So I think we kind of get into that with ourselves and rebuilding ourselves and kind of, creating these models that do not reflect the author. So I think it seems to me, and I guess even getting older without realizing it, the closer, I don't know how close I am to authenticity, but the closer I do know when I am aware of it is that I actually am getting more comfortable and accepting the way God made me and saying, thank you. I'm fine. It seems like it's almost a prideful thing when you go, I like myself. Right. And I didn't always like myself. And there's definitely days that I don't now, but there's more days I do than I don't.
Yeah.
And I think that reflects back on God, is that God is like, I want you to like yourself because you are made in my image, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's fear of rejection. I mean, why
certainly
would
is.
you present yourself as yourself in your current condition,
Right.
wherever you are on the spectrum of success, all of that, instead of just like trying to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's fear of rejection is the reason we won't be our authentic self. We know what our
part
authentic
of it.
self is, but
Yeah.
Well, the human condition has a nagging sickness called shame, and it's in every one of us. And Brene Brown's done a lot more work on this, but her terminology is, if you really see me, if you really know me, you
Maybe
will
you
reject me,
Yes.
or you won't like me,
Yeah.
or I'm not. I love the way she words it. I'm unworthy of connection at my most authentic self. And I think that persistent belief
Yes.
is nagging in layers. You know,
Sure.
we can grow out of some of it, but
Right.
we have to always keep an eye on that shame that lies to us about what we are.
So true.
Because when we hear good stories, or when you see somebody get real and show you that courage to be who they really are, at least for me, and
Right.
most of people that I know, give me that all day long. I don't care about the polished fake, whatever, man. I'm connected. I'm human.
Yeah.
Your weakness.
what was that journey like for you? I mean, even in business or whatever.
Yeah, well, I struggled with that in business as far as leading a group of people.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think in terms of authenticity as it is being vulnerable and transparent. So being able to talk about those things that you've overcome in the past, struggles you had in the past that you overcame versus struggles you're facing right now that you don't have figured out yet, and learning how to maybe share those things with a larger group of people. It's different. I think it is when you're sharing it with a large group of people, or you're sharing it with one or two people.
Don't you think it matters who your audience is? I mean, like, are you with friendly ears?
Right.
Or are you just throwing your pearls before swine? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm myself with some people, they're going to reject me. They might have rejected me anyway. So
Right. I don't, you know,
do you gradate it based on audiences?
I'm sure I do.
I know I do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell everybody all my stuff.
That's wise, because there is a thing, believe it or not, in oversharing when it comes to your struggles.
There you go.
And that's a selfish thing.
Yeah.
Or a untempered aspect, to where the person sharing, they might call it authenticity, but really it's like, if I could just get all this out to somebody, I'll be better. That's a false
Have you ever
belief.
seen somebody do that on social media? I mean,
Yes,
like,
sure.
just air their whole laundry and their whole life, and you're like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What? Why? You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
may be authentic, but there's something kind of odd about it. What is that? I don't
Well,
know.
it seems like an ulterior motive captures it.
Oh,
And for social media,
Feel sorry for me, or
particularly, I would just use one of the three temptations of Jesus, in the wilderness. The pinnacle of the temple is jump off.
okay,
And let's see if the angels really have your back, because that's the comments, right? So you jump off in your post,
There you
and then you
go.
see how many people are going to come to your rescue.
Yeah.
And it's really a false
that's
way
good.
of testing relational loyalty.
yep,
And we should never tempt that. We should never try and put ourselves in precarious places to see who really is for us. That's manipulation. And
Yes.
that's
that's
toxic.
really good.
That
Yeah.
is.
I guess that's what is off-putting about it, because it's a kind of authenticity.
Yeah, you're vulnerable.
It's
Yeah.
vulnerability.
But you're doing it for a nefarious, selfish,
Yeah.
manipulative reason.
Yeah.
Because let's go back.
Yeah.
You don't really want truth. All you want is to see who's on your side.
Yeah.
You're not seeking what is the true, what's real here. And I think I need to put some of my true out there in real and messy, but I'm looking for more truth. I'd love to hear yours. And I'd love to hear, that's what a community does, is when we
Yes.
really love what's real, true,
Right. The good and the bad.
good and bad.
Right.
But I think it's in pursuit of something that might seem old school, but it's like our culture really needs to come home again to the idea of what's true.
We
It's the
are looking for
pursuit of it.
heroes. We're looking for heroes.
Sure.
But maybe the hero is the person who overcame, not just the person who just always seemed to get it right.
Always win. Right.
Always win, yeah.
And that is a part of our problem as a culture. We, especially Americans, we love winners. I want a winner, right? And so as soon as you let me down, you're not my guy anymore.
So,
But isn't that cyclical too? Because when you have win-lose metrics about life, I don't want to talk to you guys because you all look like winners. At least your social tells me you do nothing but win. Well, that's not my reality. So I'm automatically, if I want what's true to be the basis for how you connect with me, I don't think I can connect with you guys because you're going to think I'm a loser. And so it just really prevents authentic community building. We've got to get beyond win-lose metrics, which are driven by our culture, so we can build authenticity.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is sometimes people put so much effort in building this image that they go years and years and years without actually facing the truth and being self-aware as to who they are and you know what I'm saying? And that is, oh my goodness, that is.
well, then there's like an egregious failure, like they fall off, their high horse,
Well, I think it was said yesterday, we were talking about this, the word hypocrisy is a bit misunderstood today, slightly, from when Jesus coined it. He's talking about an actor in a play or the mask that they wear. We use hypocrisy now that you say one thing, but you do something else. No, it goes way deeper. It's acting. And so I think some people over time have acted and tried to be good or be seen a certain way. And you can lose your real self over time until you do everything in your power to convince yourself, I'm the character I'm playing, until you think that's one. And that's pretty sad. It's like a life form of method acting.
Yeah.
You try so hard to be a character, but it's not coming from a real
Right.
flourishing
It's a
life-giving
shell.
source.
It's a shell. It's not from inside out.
And ultimately not true.
Yeah.
It's not, that's the thing, is it comes back to true. It's like, is this a costume or is it your character? Is this really you?
Yeah. So I had a friend a couple of years ago. He was kind of going through literal life or death crisis with one of his kids. And actually, they had lost a child a couple years before that, and he was in a bad place. And I just called him up to check on him one day. I was going to like encourage him, and asked him, "Hey, just wanted to encourage you in the Lord. How you doing?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm not very happy with that SOB about God." It's like, whoa. And this is a very godly guy. I'm talking. I mean, he's a guy that loves. He's all about Jesus.
Did you hold the phone out in case the
I was waiting for the light. Now I was waiting to hear the lightning on the other end. But actually, it was like almost like after he said that, it was almost like I heard the Father's voice, like speaking to him, my buddy, like, yeah, get it out. Go ahead and get it out.
Right.
Now, in my tradition, I know some of y'all's traditions, which probably be double down on my tradition.
No.
That kind of thing wouldn't fly. Like, oh my gosh, you say something like that,
Right.
you're gone. You're done. Yeah. You might as well go ahead and start living for the devil, because that's where you're going anyway. To say something like that. But when you read the Psalms, it's full of that kind of David just getting ticked, like, seriously?
Yep.
I've done all this for you. I've served you, and this is what I get. Thank you very much. And it's like the Lord responds, and it's just like,
Yes.
get it out. Yes. Go ahead and pour it out. And especially when you're in your younger years, to think of being that kind of authentic with God. And I'm not talking about doing that out of just a blatancy or just flippant. This really came out of the heart. But I felt like it was almost like the Lord was pleased with that honesty.
I don't believe it.
Where have you guys experienced those kind of times with the Lord, where you finally got to a place where you were like, okay, I got to up my notch. I got to step it up in being authentic with God, because he already knows me anyway. Who do we think we're faking here? It's like he knows exactly what's in there. So I might as well come out with it.
I remember this friend of mine. We were working on a project together, and I'm like workaholic, and I'm going to deliver. I mean, if the day's the day, I'm showing up, and I'm going to have my stuff done. You know what I mean? And I'm going to do it times a couple extra, so that I went over the top. That was my attitude. Well, and I looked at him because he was very successful in business, and he showed up to this meeting, and we started talking. And I said, well, what about, which was his assignment for the day? He said, man, I dropped the ball on that. And I was thinking in my head, I mean, that's it? That's all you got? You're not going to say, give me your excuse.
Right.
He didn't have one.
Yeah.
It was kind of refreshing. I remember it as an event in my life.
Yeah.
Because it was okay to say, I didn't deliver.
Yeah.
I had never had that freedom my entire life. I was an adult man with kids. And I'm thinking, this is great. I love this guy. He's hardworking. He's successful. And he just said, I dropped the ball.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
It was like, that was good for me. It really was. It was like in that authenticity that he was just able to be out with it. It was like, it was refreshing.
But he must have felt like you were a safe place.
True.
To be able to do that. And
True.
sometimes
I fired him, but no.
But, so that kind of brings another angle on it too, or another issue of authenticity. Create the relationship depth with others to allow others to feel safe to be authentic with us either.
Right.
So I think that we can even create cultures within our businesses or our communities or whatever, where people can't afford to be authentic.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's a communal issue, and you've seen this in businesses, you've seen it in churches, you've seen. I mean, every entity has a culture. So, and especially, I guess, it's almost like church is really the low hanging fruit on this. As far as you want to talk about some folks, they're not authentic,
Right.
but that's not the way Jesus was, man.
I was I was thinking of that book, Good to Great, that talks about all the aspects of companies that went from good to great, Jim Collins. And one of them was facing the brutal facts. And I've been in tons of meetings where people who are at the head of the table can't talk about what went wrong. They only want to Pollyanna the whole thing, right? And if you bring up the critique, you're the bad guy. And I think that's a flaw of a community or a team.
Yeah.
When that atmosphere isn't there to go, hey, we stunk at that.
Yeah.
Let's never do it that way again.
Yeah.
Well, that's the balance, it seems, and even Jesus seems to really hit on this hard, is that you will either love truth or you will begin to replace it with perception. So you can manage perception, but is that true? And the other thing is you can be true and it will shape a perception, but one comes before the other.
And what about selling something, right?
Yes.
Like overpromise, underdeliver versus underpromise, overdeliver. You're like, people can't get up and just say, it's going to be an okay event. They have to sell it like it's going to be amazing. And then if it's not, you've been inauthentic. Actually.
Right.
Listen to the ads in one day that may come over radio or TV or whatever, how much life-changing, the word life-changing is used. It's as big as it can be. It's like,
But
this will change your life.
every sermon series is going to be life changing.
It's life-changing.
Well, our church, yeah.
And sometimes I hear guys go, "Man, you need to listen to this sermon series. It'll change your life." I don't want my life changed. I like it.
Right.
Don't change my life.
Yeah.
What about that?
Can we quote you on that?
And how much,
Is that authentic enough for you?
I love it. Well, it's just how much is billed as life-changing, and it might add something to you, but you don't remember it. It's not defining life-changing. Like
those sermons you played for me and Brian last night.
well, that changed my life and humility. But I'll say
Brought me
this.
a lot of joy.
Yeah,
it did.
it got a laugh, and that was the real big.
That was what you were after all along.
But I want to go to Jacob on this. Jacob is deceiver, trickster, con artist.
Yeah.
That's who he thinks he is. So this comes back to identity.
Yeah.
Personal identity. It isn't until he wrestles, and he doesn't even, I don't believe, know he's wrestling with God in that story.
Wrestle or wrestle?
Wrestle.
Okay.
And we're in
Let's
Southeast
just get-
Texas.
let's
Let's
get-
get this.
we are filming
this is
from-
Northeast Texas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But still, it's wrestle here.
Well, wrestle with just an R. But when he wrestles with, I'm not sure he knows what, but it develops in that what he has. I think some of us, maybe even those who are watching, listening, you're wrestling with something, but you don't realize what you got your hands on. You might want to conquer it or defeat it or just get it over with, right? Do some kind of Brazilian jiu-jitsu move and just go on with your life. You might have your hands on God, and God may have his hands on you. And it's the manifestation of the true you, because that Jacob identity, trickster, cheater, that's not really you, because it's in that fight that names start getting asked about. What's your name? Well, the Lord or God in this story doesn't answer, but he says, do you know your name?
And he walks out with his flaw apparent too. Right? He's touched in the hip. Now he's limping.
Yeah.
Well, I'm coming back to the God, that SOB, that quote that some people might be appalled by. God would love for us to come to him with our angst, come to him with our terror, and wrestle and fight with God about it. Because in that emerges the trueness of who we really are.
Right.
Israel, which actually means those who wrestle with God. That's the heart of it. And so I just, encourage all of us, keep wrestling with it, because in that emergence, wrestling with what is true, what is real, is going to come a new name. Come authenticity.
Yeah.
I think, as you're a part of different groups and communities, whether it's your family or business or church or wherever, and if you have a role to play where you're trying to help people along, I think that's one of the, I'm going back to what we kind of talked about earlier in the conversation, but people will at work, especially, they'll put on a mask, and I've got no problems, and I'm here because they want their job. They don't want to lose their job. They don't feel like they can be real with their struggles, be authentic. And y'all know me, I talk a lot about this, but you got to put the who ahead of the what. And so what that means a lot of times is that you've got to be willing to be the first one to actually be authentic with people. And you got to do that, but you also got to show them that you actually care about them, for them to be able to, a lot of times, to get to a place where they can actually be authentic, you know? So, I mean, I've had different people at work who have had significant struggles, and here's the thing about authenticity. It's messy. And so, you know, so what would you rather have? Would you rather have fake and a lack of truth, and let's all walk around and pretend, or would you actually want to have a relationship with people?
That's why I left our history, you know, with our denominational history, was I just couldn't keep laying my head on the pillow at night and fake like I believed things. I just could not. I couldn't believe it myself, and then I couldn't be expected to layer that on as a template on somebody else's faith. And that was hard. It was hard to leave. It was hard to leave that cover and be true. And you pay a price. And somebody asked me, said, well, now how do you feel about what your friends are saying? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I found out who my friends actually are.
Yes. Yes.
Because the other ones melted away, right?
And Brian, it's worth noting what you framed is that if we suppress the true and we try to come off with or sell something that everything's okay.
Right.
And I've been around people in the last couple of years that it feels as if they live from the worst thing that could happen is that we admit that things aren't okay.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they guard it with everything in them. Well, all of that's really truthfully not okay is coming out in all these weird behaviors that you can't ever get your finger on to help. Or let's say I'm at the root of it in our relationship. I can't even apologize and start working and guard your heart, what you need from me. I can't even work on it because you're not admitting it, just using the example.
Right.
It's coming out.
Yeah.
Even if we're not admitting it. And so it's just better, let's get right to it so that we can grow from it.
Right. Well, we can do that, everybody, except for Lance. He doesn't want to grow. He's basically-
He's combative. He's
Don't
combative.
send him any more clips of sermons or
No more sermons.
Don't shit on
No
me.
more.